A 7-year-old girl slept on a stranger's motorcycle at dawn barefoot, bleeding, dreaming of rescue. She'd been running for 6 hours through the coldest April night Portland, Oregon had seen in a decade. Behind her, a building full of hungry children and a man who counted them like inventory. Ahead of her, nothing but hope and the memory of her mother's voice saying, "Motorcycle people are the good ones, baby. They protect people who can't protect themselves." The garage door opened at 6:23 in the morning. Wyatt Brennan stood in the doorway of his detached garage, wearing jeans and a white t-shirt, barefoot on cold concrete, holding a coffee mug he'd forget about for the next 16 hours. The April air bit at 42 degrees. Late spring in the Pacific Northwest still carried winter's edge, that particular kind of cold that gets into your bones and stays there. He'd woken up late, another restless night, another dream about Finn, always Finn. 25 years gone this June, and Wyatt still saw him every time he closed his eyes. Blonde hair catching sunlight, blue eyes too big for his small face. 7 years old and already carrying more pain than any child should know. The dreams had been worse lately, more vivid, like Finn was trying to tell him something from whatever place the dead go when they leave us behind. Wyatt had planned his morning the way he planned every morning. Coffee first, check the bike second, review the work schedule third. He was a construction foreman, had been for 12 years, ran a crew of 18 men building commercial properties across the Portland metro area. Good work, honest work, the kind that let him sleep at night, or at least it used to before the dreams came back. He'd paid off this house 5 years early, lived alone, never married. The brothers joked about it, sometimes gentle ribbing about the eternal bachelor, but they understood. When you carry certain kinds of guilt, you don't burden another person with it. You just carry it alone. The house sat on Oakwood Drive in southeast Portland, a quiet street lined with maple trees and modest single-family homes. Working-class neighborhood. Good people who minded their own business and helped their neighbors when help was needed. Wyatt had lived here for 14 years, knew everyone on the block by name, waved to Mrs. Crawford every morning when she walked her terrier. He walked toward the garage that Sunday morning, thinking about transmission fluid and whether the Road King needed an oil change. Practical thoughts, safe thoughts, the kind that kept the memories at bay. He hit the light switch and his world stopped. A child lay curled on his motorcycle, small body folded into the seat like she'd tried to make herself disappear. Blonde hair tangled and dirty, catching the overhead bulb's harsh light. She wore a faded blue sweatshirt 3 sizes too large, gray sweatpants, sliding down narrow hips, no shoes, feet dark with dried blood. For exactly 5 seconds, Wyatt couldn't breathe, couldn't move, couldn't process what his eyes were showing him. Finn. But Finn was dead, had been dead for 25 years, died at 7 years old in a place called Pine Valley Children's Home, while Wyatt, 18 and powerless, watched the system fail him. Watched the adults who were supposed to protect him look away. Watched his little brother disappear into bureaucracy and neglect until there was nothing left but a small coffin and a headstone that read, "Beloved son." The child on the motorcycle stirred. The light had woken her. She opened her eyes and Wyatt felt the ground shift beneath him. Blue. Impossibly blue. The same shade as Finn's, that particular color between sky and ocean that people write poems about but never quite capture. She saw him. Panic flooded her small face. She scrambled backward on the seat and her left ankle buckled beneath her weight. The sound she made was high and terrified, the cry of an animal caught in a trap. "I'm sorry." The words tumbled out fast, desperate, thick with fear and something else. Stuttering. A speech impediment, or maybe just terror making her tongue clumsy. "I didn't mean to. Please don't be mad." Every instinct Wyatt had learned in the Marine Corps kicked in. Assess, don't react, read the situation, identify threats, protect civilians. He'd spent 4 years in the service, 2 tours in Iraq during the surge, came home in 2008 with an honorable discharge and skills he'd hoped never to use on American soil. The girl was tiny, maybe 4 feet tall, probably weighed less than 50 pounds. The sweatshirt hung past her hands like a dress. Through the thin fabric, he could see the outline of her ribs, the sharp angles of collarbones that shouldn't be visible on a healthy child. Her feet were a mess. Cuts across the soles, some deep enough that blood had soaked through and dried black. Ankles swollen, the left one twice the size of the right. She'd been running, running hard and running far. "Who are you?" Wyatt kept his voice low, steady, the same tone he'd used talking down drunk guys at bars and scared privates under fire. The voice that said, "I'm not a threat, I'm not going to hurt you, you're safe here." The girl tried to get off the bike despite the pain. Her movements were jerky, uncoordinated, driven by fear rather than logic. "I'll go. I'm sorry. Please don't call them." "Hey, stop." Wyatt knelt down, dropped from 6'2" to maybe 3 feet, bringing himself below her eye level. Hands visible, open, empty. Showing her he wasn't reaching for her, wasn't trying to grab her, just trying to make himself less frightening. "You're hurt." She pressed against the garage wall, back flat against pegboard hung with tools. Shaking so hard her teeth chattered, though whether from cold or fear, Wyatt couldn't tell. "Probably both." "I'm not mad. I'm not going to hurt you. What's your name?" The question seemed to surprise her, like maybe nobody had asked her name in a long time. She swallowed hard, and when she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "Bryn." "Okay, Bryn, why are you in my garage?" She looked at the motorcycle. Tears streamed down her dirty face, cutting clean tracks through the grime. When she spoke again, her words came out broken, like she had to pull each one from somewhere deep and painful. "I wanted to sleep on the motorcycle." "I'm sorry, I'll leave." Something cracked open in Wyatt's chest, old scar tissue tearing. Memories he'd buried flooding back. A kid wanting to sleep on a motorcycle. Why, what kind of desperation drives a child to a stranger's garage instead of somewhere safe? "You ran away from somewhere." She nodded. Couldn't seem to speak anymore, like she'd used up all her words and now only had tears left. From where, a whisper barely audible. Riverside. Wyatt knew the place. Everyone in Portland knew the place. Riverside Children's Home on Elm Street. Big old building, formerly a private school converted to residential care facility in the 90s. State licensed, supposedly reputable. One of those places people in the community pointed to with pride, like, "Look what we do for orphans, look how much we care." That's the children's home. The facility on Elm. Another nod. "Why'd you run, Bryn?" She looked at his face, really looked, seeing past the tattoos and the beard and the early morning roughness, seeing something there that made her gamble everything on a stranger. "You look like my brother." Her voice was small, broken, carrying a weight no 7-year-old should know how to carry. "He went away." "Everyone goes away, but you have a motorcycle. In my dreams, motorcycle man saves me. Please don't send me back." The words hit Wyatt like shrapnel. Brother, motorcycle man, dreams of rescue. Please don't send me back. He stared at the blonde hair, the blue eyes, the age that couldn't be anything but 7. Finn. This was Finn. Not literally, but close enough that the universe had to be playing some kind of cruel joke. Or maybe not cruel. Maybe this was something else. "What's your brother's name?" Confusion crossed her face. I don't have a brother. I meant, you look like the man in my dreams. The motorcycle man." She flushed, embarrassed, like she'd been caught in a lie. "I made him up to feel better. He has a motorcycle and he rescues kids." "It's stupid. It's not stupid." Wyatt reached behind him, slowly telegraphing every movement. Bryn flinched anyway, small body tensing for a blow, and that told him more than any words could. She was used to being hit, expected it, prepared for it. He pulled off his leather vest. Hell's Angels patches, worn smooth from 12 years of wear, still warm from his body heat. The vest that marked him as Sergeant-at-Arms for the Portland chapter. The vest that meant brotherhood and loyalty, and a code that went deeper than law. He held it out to her. "You're freezing. Put this on." Bryn stared at the vest like it was something holy. Didn't move. Didn't reach for it. "You're not calling them." "Not unless you want me to." She shook her head violently, whole body involved in the negation. "Then I won't." Why? The question hung in the cold air between them. Why would a stranger help? Why would anyone help when the whole world seemed built on looking away? Wyatt felt 25 years of locked grief rising in his throat. Felt Finn's ghost standing beside him, 7 years old, forever waiting to see if his big brother had learned anything from failing him. "Because someone should have helped my little brother. Nobody did. He died. I'm not making that mistake again." Bryn's eyes went wide. "Your brother?" Wyatt nodded, had to force the words past the tightness in his chest. "His name was Finn." He was 7. Same age as you. Blonde hair, blue eyes just like you. What happened to him? Bad place, like where you came from. He died there. Understanding dawned on her small face, the kind of understanding that shouldn't be possible for a child, but was because she'd lived through her own version of hell and recognized a fellow survivor when she saw one. You couldn't save him. Wyatt felt tears come. First time he'd cried about Finn in 25 years. 25 years of holding it together, of carrying guilt like a second skeleton, of waking up from dreams where he tried and failed and tried again to pull his little brother out of Pine Valley before it killed him. No, I couldn't. I was 18. I tried, but I couldn't. He set the vest down on the concrete floor between them, giving her the choice, giving her power in a situation where she'd had none for so long. Then he did something he hadn't done in years. He sat down fully, legs crossed, going lower than Bryn. Total submission in body language, showing her that he wasn't a threat, that she was safe here, that she had all the power in this moment. But I can save you if you'll let me. Bryn was barely breathing. You want to help me? Wyatt's voice broke. I've spent 25 years trying to make up for failing my brother. You show up in my garage, same age. Finn was looking just like him, sleeping on a motorcycle because you dreamed someone would save you. Yeah, I want to help you. I need to help you. What if nobody believes me? Nobody ever believes me. Wyatt pulled out his phone, an old iPhone, cracked screen, case held together with electrical tape. Working man's phone. Practical. I'm not nobody. I'm Reaper. I've got 47 brothers who protect people. We're going to make them believe you. How? First we're getting you safe, then we're getting you fed, then we're going to hear your story, and then we're going to make sure you never go back there. Bryn's voice was tiny, fragile, like it might break if he said the wrong thing. Promise. Wyatt extended his hand, fist out. The way the brothers greeted each other, the way men made promises that meant something. I promise on Finn's memory. Brothers. The girl didn't understand, tilted her head confused. What's that? A gentle smile, the first real one Wyatt had managed in months. It's how brothers make promises. You bump my fist. Bryn used her right hand, tiny fist against his scarred knuckles. The touch was feather-light, tentative, testing whether this was real or another dream that would dissolve when she woke up. Brothers. Brothers. Wyatt helped Bryn into the house. She wouldn't let the vest leave her shoulders, clutched it like a lifeline, like it was the only thing keeping her from floating away. The kitchen was small and clean. Wyatt lived alone but kept the place maintained. Military habits died hard. Dishes done, counters wiped, floor swept, everything in its place. He got Bryn sitting at the table. Made hot chocolate the old way, milk and cocoa powder and sugar on the stove, the way his mother used to make it before she died. Put bandages on the bleeding feet, working carefully, trying not to cause more pain than necessary. The left ankle was swollen badly. Sprained for sure, maybe worse. She needed a doctor, needed x-rays, needed things Wyatt couldn't provide in a kitchen at 6:30 in the morning. But first she needed to be warm and fed and safe enough to talk. Bryn sipped the hot chocolate. First warm thing in hours, maybe days. Her hands shook holding the mug, and Wyatt noticed how thin her fingers were. Bird bones, breakable. She started talking quietly. I've been at Riverside for 6 months, since my mom died. The words came slowly at first, like she was testing them, seeing if Wyatt would interrupt or dismiss, or tell her to stop lying. When he just listened, nodding occasionally, she went faster. Director Hastings, he's not nice. Understatement. Wyatt recognized it. The way abused kids minimize their trauma because the full truth was too big to say out loud. He locks us up. He doesn't feed us enough. I lost weight. See, Bryn lifted the too large sweatshirt. Wyatt's jaw clenched, ribs visible through skin, sternum prominent, hip bones jutting. A 7-year-old child should not look like that, should not have countable vertebrae and hollow spaces where flesh should be. He hits us with a wooden spoon if we talk too much or cry, and he locks us in a closet in the dark for hours if we do something wrong. I was in there for 28 hours once. I counted. Wyatt wanted to put his fist through a wall, wanted to drive to Riverside right now and introduce Trevor Hastings to the kind of violence he'd learned in Fallujah. Wanted to make him feel every ounce of fear he'd inflicted on children who couldn't fight back. He didn't. He just listened. Because that's what Bryn needed. Someone who would listen without interrupting, without explaining away, without making excuses. Bryn showed him welts on the back of her legs, yellow-green bruises, healing but distinct, clear pattern of something rigid striking soft flesh. This is from 2 weeks ago. I asked for more food at dinner. He hit me 5 times, then he locked me in the quiet room overnight. Tears streamed down her dirty face. I told teachers, I told the doctor, I told police when the neighbor lady called them. Nobody believed me. They all believed Mr. Hastings because he's a grown-up and has papers, and I'm just a kid nobody wants. Bryn pulled something from her sweatshirt pocket, an old Nokia flip phone, the kind that stopped being manufactured 10 years ago. No service couldn't make calls battery held together with hope and electrical tape. But it could record. I found this phone in a donation box. It doesn't make calls, but it can record. Wyatt leaned forward. What's that? 7 days ago, I heard Mr. Hastings talking on the phone. The air vent goes from my room to his office. I recorded him. She pressed play with small fingers that shook. The speaker was tinny cheap, but the voice came through clear. Greg, I need you to adjust the books again. State audit is in June. The voice was smooth, professional, pleasant. The kind of voice people trusted. The kind that hosted fundraisers and gave speeches at Rotary Club meetings about the importance of caring for vulnerable children. A pause. Another man's voice tinnier through the phone's speaker. David, we're pushing it. You're taking a lot out. That's nearly half the food budget. Trevor Hastings laughed. Casual, easy, like he was discussing weather or sports scores. These kids ate too much anyway. I cut breakfast to 3 days a week. They're fine. Orphans should be grateful for anything. Another pause. What about that Turner kid? His file says he needs speech therapy. State allocated funds monthly for that. More laughter. He doesn't talk anyway. Why waste the funding? I pocketed that for 6 months. Kid's too damaged for therapy to help. He'll age out in the system. The other voice uncertain. Jesus, Trevor. Don't Jesus me. I'm running a business. These kids are revenue streams. The quiet ones like Bryn are perfect. They don't complain, don't cause trouble. State pays top dollar. It's beautiful. The recording ended. Silence in the kitchen. Just the hum of the refrigerator and distant traffic. Bryn's voice was dead. Empty. He's sending me away in July to a worse place. He wants my bed for a new kid who makes more. He said I'm too damaged. He's right. Nobody's ever going to want me. Wyatt stood up so fast the chair scraped. Bryn flinched at the sudden movement, and he hated that. Hated that she expected violence from every adult in her life. Bryn, look at me. She looked up, blue eyes swimming with tears. You are not damaged. You are brave. You survived 6 months of hell. You escaped. You ran barefoot in freezing cold for miles to get away. You found help. That's not damaged. That's a fighter. But he said he's a liar, and he's about to find out what happens when you hurt kids in this town. Wyatt knelt in front of Bryn, eye-level hands on her small shoulders, gentle but firm, grounding. Bryn, I'm making you a promise, a real promise, not like the ones adults made you and broke. I'm calling my brothers right now, all 47 of them. By noon, they'll be here. We're going to get you to a doctor. We're going to get you safe. And then we're going to take that recording to the police, to lawyers, to anyone who will listen. And if they don't listen, we'll make them listen. Trevor Hastings ends today. You are never going back there. Ever. And I mean that on my brother Finn's grave. Do you understand me? Bryn nodded, still crying. Wyatt pulled off his necklace. Dog tags, United States Marine Corps, worn every day for 18 years since leaving the service. They were scratched and faded, the embossed letters barely legible, but they were his. They meant something. He put them around Bryn's neck. These are mine. They mean I keep my word. You hold on to these until I bring you home safe. Okay. Bryn touched the tags with trembling fingers. Home. Wyatt's voice broke again. Yeah, kid, home. You're not going to any facility. You're staying with me. If you want to, you want me. The question killed him. 7 years old and already believing nobody could want her. Already internalizing the message that she was disposable. Revenue stream, damaged goods. The day Finn died, I made a promise I'd never let another kid suffer if I could stop it. You showing up in my garage, that's not coincidence. That's Finn telling me I get a second chance. So yeah, I want you. If you'll have me. Bryn launched forward, hugged Wyatt hard. First hug in 6 months, maybe longer. First safe touch from an adult who wasn't examining her or documenting her injuries or asking her invasive questions. Please don't let them take me back. Wyatt wrapped his arms around the tiny girl. This child who looked like Finn, who was his second chance, who was trusting him not to fail the way he'd failed before. Never. You're mine now, my daughter, my family, whatever you need. Nobody takes you anywhere. Bryn whispered into his shoulder. The motorcycle man, he's real. Wyatt was crying openly now. Yeah, kid, he's real, and he's not letting you go. Wyatt stood, pulled out his phone, dialed a number he'd called 1,000 times. 2 rings, Bear Donovan. The voice on the other end was deep rough, the sound of a man who'd smoked too many cigarettes and lived too many hard years. Bear was 6'5", 280 pounds, chapter president for 15 years. Lost his nephew to system neglect back in 2016. Kid was 9. Foster care situation. Died from injuries nobody investigated until it was too late. Bear didn't trust the system. None of them did. It's Reaper. Brother, early for you. Wyatt's voice was shaking. I need every member within 50 miles of my house. Now. Silence. 3 seconds. Then Bear's voice changed. All business. What's going on? I found a kid, Bear. She looks like Finn. She's 7. She ran from Riverside Children's Home, barefoot in the cold because the director's been starving her, hitting her, locking her in closets, pocketing the funding meant to care for her. The kids got it recorded. We're not waiting for the cops to take their time on this one. Another pause. Longer. When Bear spoke again, his voice was granite. How fast can you get her safe? She's safe now. She's with me. Good. A beat. We ride in 1 hour. Nobody touches your girl. The line went dead. Wyatt looked at Bryn. She was watching him with wide eyes, the hot chocolate forgotten on the table, the vest still wrapped around her shoulders. You ever see a lot of motorcycles at once? She shook her head. You're about to. 47 minutes later, the rumble started. Bryn was in Wyatt's living room by then. Clean now, showered, wearing one of his old Marine PT shirts that hung to her knees like a dress. The shower had been difficult. She'd been terrified of the bathroom, of closed doors, of being locked in. Wyatt had stood outside the whole time, door open, talking to her through the steam, so she knew he was there. So she knew she wasn't trapped. Ankle wrapped now, feet bandaged. Hot chocolate replaced with toast and scrambled eggs that she'd eaten too fast, like she expected someone to take the food away. Wyatt had to tell her to slow down, gentle, explaining that there was more if she wanted it. That food wasn't a weapon here, that she could eat until she was full. The sound began low, distant, like thunder rolling in from the coast. Then it grew. Wyatt walked to the window. Bryn followed, limping but curious. The vest dragged on the floor behind her, too big, but she wouldn't take it off. The street was filling with motorcycles. 1, 5, 12, 20, 10. They parked in formation. Tight, disciplined, riders dismounting in near silence despite the size of the machines. Harleys, mostly. Road Kings and street glides and fat boys. Chrome-catching morning light. Leather and denim in patches that marked them as brothers. By 8:30, 47 motorcycles lined Oakwood Drive. Neighbors came to windows. Stared. Mrs. Crawford stood on her porch with her terrier hand over her mouth. The Johnsons across the street filmed on their phones. 2 houses down, someone called the cops probably, but that was fine. Let them come. Let everyone see. Bryn pressed against Wyatt's side. Are they mad? No, kid. They're here for you. The front door opened. Bear walked in first. Had to duck under the frame. 6'5" meant most doorways were obstacles. Behind him came the others. One by one filling Wyatt's small living room. Leather vests and tattooed arms and beards and scarred faces. Men who looked dangerous because they were, but who'd channeled that danger into protection instead of destruction. Bear looked at Bryn. His expression softened immediately. This giant of a man, this president of one of the most notorious motorcycle clubs in the country, knelt down, so he was still taller than Bryn, even on his knees. Hey there. I'm Bear, Bryn whispered. You're really big. A smile. Yeah. But I'm really gentle. Your name's Bryn. A nod. Bryn Wyatt called us because he says you need help. Is that true? Another nod. Okay, we're going to help. But we need to know what happened. Can you tell us? Bryn looked at Wyatt, seeking permission, seeking safety. Wyatt nodded. It's okay, they're safe. So Bryn told the story again. Slower this time, more details. 6 months at Riverside Children's Home. Director Hastings, locked dormitories. One bathroom for 9 kids. Broken heater, food locked in closets. Wooden spoon hanging on the kitchen wall. The quiet room. 28 hours in the dark. The room was silent except for Bryn's small voice. 47 men listening, jaws, clenched hands curled into fists, but nobody moved. Nobody shouted. Nobody interrupted. When she mentioned the recording, every head turned. Can we hear it? Bear's voice was gentle. Bryn played it. The men listened. The smooth, professional voice of Trevor Hastings talking about revenue streams and damaged kids and pocketing therapy funds. Talking about Bryn like she was livestock. Inventory. Product. When it ended, Bear stood, looked around the room at his brothers, all in favor of full mobilization. For a moment, nothing, just the ticking of the clock on the wall and distant traffic outside, and the collective breathing of 47 men making a decision. Then every single hand went up. Not a moment's hesitation, not a single dissenting voice. 47 men voting unanimously to help a girl they just met. Bear nodded. Reaper. Your point on this. What do you need? Wyatt had spent the last hour thinking about exactly this. About what Bryn needed. About what would hold up in court. About how to make sure this time the system worked. Michael, I need emergency custody paperwork filed. A man stepped forward. Michael Barrett, 49 years old. Actual family law attorney, 23 years practicing. He joined the club in his 30s after his daughter died in a custody dispute gone wrong, spent his days in courtrooms fighting for kids nobody else wanted to fight for. I'll have emergency custody petition filed within 90 minutes. We'll get a hearing scheduled for tomorrow. Wyatt continued. Nora, I need a full medical exam documented with photographs. Dr. Nora Gallagher stepped forward, 47 years old, nurse practitioner specializing in pediatrics. Worked at Emmanuel Hospital during the week, rode with the club on weekends. Her sister had died in foster care in the 80s. Some wounds never healed, but you could at least make sure nobody else got the same ones. I'll examine her here. Document everything. Medical affidavit for court. Declan, I need that recording extracted and certified. Declan Reed, 34, IT specialist. Computer forensics, ex-military like Wyatt, but Army instead of Marines. Cybersecurity consultant for half the law firms in Portland. He knew how to make digital evidence admissible. Give me the phone, I'll have certified copies within the hour. Hugh, I need you to make calls. Police, child services, media if necessary. Hugh Brennan stepped forward last. 68 years old, Wyatt's uncle, chapter founder, started Portland Angels in '79 after coming back from the first Gulf War with nothing but a motorcycle and a belief that brotherhood mattered. Retired mechanic now, but still sharp, still connected, still the moral center of the chapter. He'd known Finn, been at the funeral, watched Wyatt carry guilt for 25 years. Hugh looked at Bryn, then at Wyatt. His voice was thick. Wyatt, Finn sent you this girl. Take care of her like you couldn't take care of Finn. This is your second chance. Wyatt nodded, couldn't speak. Bear addressed the room. We do this right, legal, clean, no mistakes. Because if we mess this up, Bryn goes back. Understood, 46 voices. Understood. Then, let's move. The next 6 hours were a blur of coordinated efficiency. Dar Gallagher examined Bryn in Wyatt's bedroom. Gentle, thorough professional, she documented everything with the clinical detachment of someone who'd seen too much abuse, but still cared deeply. Weight 42 pounds. Should be 48 to 52 for age 7. Severe malnutrition. Height 3 feet 9 inches, small for age. Bruising yellow-green contusion on left cheek, approximately 1 week old. Multiple small welts on posterior thighs consistent with being struck with rigid object. Feet multiple lacerations from running barefoot on pavement. Some embedded gravel removed and cleaned. Ankle grade 2 sprain, left ankle. Significant swelling. Speech severe delay. Speaks at approximately 3-year-old level despite chronological age of 7. Stutters under stress. History per patient indicates normal speech development until 6 months ago. She took photographs, measured, made notes. Her face was professionally blank, but her hands shook slightly when she helped Bryn back into the oversized shirt. "You're going to be okay, sweetheart. You're safe now." Declan worked on the recording at Wyatt's kitchen table laptop, open cables running to the Nokia phone. He extracted the audio file, made 5 certified copies, timestamped them, verified the metadata showing recording date as 7 days prior, burned copies to CD, uploaded to secure server, created chain of custody documentation. This is admissible, clear audio, identifiable voices, no evidence of tampering. Any decent prosecutor can work with this. Michael was on his phone for 2 straight hours, filing petitions, calling in favors, scheduling emergency hearings, using every connection he'd built over 23 years of family law practice. Hearing set for tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Judge Elizabeth Monroe presiding. She's fair, she'll listen. Meanwhile, 38 brothers split into teams, knocked on every door within 2 blocks of Riverside Children's Home. Systematic, thorough, looking for anyone who'd seen something, anyone who might have noticed but not reported, anyone who could serve as witness. They found her at house number 14, Mrs. Helen Crawford, 68 years old, retired teacher, lived next door to Riverside for 12 years, watched children come and go through that building for more than a decade, seen things that troubled her, made calls that went nowhere. She opened the door and saw the leather vests, started to close it. "Ma'am." The speaker was Silas Kane, 41, soft voice, patient demeanor, former teacher himself before he joined the club. Understood how to talk to people who were scared. "We're not here to cause trouble. We're here about the children at Riverside. We think something's wrong there." Did you ever notice anything? Mrs. Crawford's face crumpled. She invited them in, sat them down in a living room full of doilies and photographs of grandchildren and the comfortable clutter of a life well lived. "I saw that little girl, Bryn. I saw her crying at the window so many times, pressed against the glass. I called police twice. They came, looked around, left, said everything was fine. She was crying now, hands shaking in her lap. I should have done more. I should have broken down that door myself. I'm 68 years old. I have nothing to lose. And I let fear of getting involved stop me from saving a child 30 feet from my house. I'll never forgive myself." Silas was gentle. "Mrs. Crawford, would you be willing to testify to what you saw?" "Yes, anything. Please." I should have spoken up sooner. They found 3 more. Dr. Graham Sterling, 44, pediatrician, private practice in Southeast Portland. Saw Bryn twice over 6 months for routine checkups required by state law for children in residential care. Each visit she was thinner. She had bruises. She stopped speaking. I documented everything. I called child services twice. They said the facility was licensed. Hastings had explanations. Budget constraints, behavioral issues, adjustment difficulties. His voice was bitter. I accepted that. I'm a doctor. My job is to protect children. I saw the signs and I didn't fight hard enough. Officer Tim Barrett, 38, Portland Police Department Patrol Division, responded to 2 calls about Riverside over the past 6 months, both times from Mrs. Crawford reporting a child in distress at the window. We went in. Director showed us around. Clean facility. Kids seemed fine. Meal logs all in order. Everything looked good on paper. He rubbed his face. We didn't push. We didn't ask to see Bryn specifically. We took the word of the man in charge. If I'd spent 10 more minutes, asked 5 more questions, maybe she doesn't run barefoot through freezing cold. Lisa Monroe, 41, Child Protective Services caseworker, conducted 2 welfare checks at Riverside over 4 months in response to reports from Dr. Sterling. I saw thin children. I saw fear in their eyes. Hastings had explanations for everything. Budget constraints, grief behaviors, trauma responses from losing parents. She looked sick. I wrote reports that said facility meets standards. I prioritized paperwork over instinct. A 7-year-old ran away because the system I represent failed her. By 5 p.m., they had everything. 4 witness statements, 1 medical affidavit, 1 certified audio recording, 1 emergency custody petition, 1 CPS report documenting systemic failures, and 47 bikers ready to make sure the system listened this time. Bear gathered everyone back at Wyatt's house. Bryn was asleep on the couch by then, dog tags still around her neck. Wyatt's vest still wrapped around her like a blanket. Exhausted from the day, from the fear, from finally being somewhere safe enough to let her guard down. Bear spoke quietly so he wouldn't wake her. We go tomorrow, courthouse 9 a.m., all of us. We fill that courtroom. We show that judge this kid has a family. Understood, 46 nods. Good. Get rest. Tomorrow we make sure Bryn never goes back. One by one the brothers left, motorcycles starting up, rumbling away into the evening. Neighbors watched from windows, still uncertain what they'd witnessed, but sensing it was something important. Wyatt sat beside Bryn on the couch, watched her sleep, 7 years old and already carrying scars most people never knew. But alive, safe, here. He thought about Finn, about all the ways he'd failed, about the promise he'd made at a funeral 25 years ago that he'd never let another kid suffer if he could stop it. Maybe this was how you kept that promise. Not by saving everyone, not by turning back time, but by showing up when it mattered, by listening when a child spoke, by believing when everyone else dismissed. Bryn stirred in her sleep, reached for the tags at her neck, held them tight. Wyatt pulled a blanket over her, tucked it around small shoulders, made sure she was warm. Tomorrow they'd go to court. Tomorrow they'd face Trevor Hastings and his lawyers, and a system built on bureaucracy and skepticism. Tomorrow they'd fight for a little girl who'd run through the cold because nobody else would listen. But tonight she was safe. She was home. She was his. And that was enough. Monday morning arrived cold and clear. April 29th. 24 hours since Wyatt found Bryn in his garage. 24 hours that had changed everything. The sun rose at 6:14, painting Portland's east side in pale gold light. Wyatt had been awake for 2 hours already. Hadn't really slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Bryn's face superimposed over Finn's. 2 children, same age, same needs, separated by 25 years, and a chance that felt less like luck and more like providence. Bryn was still asleep in the guest bedroom, the room that used to be storage boxes of old Marine Corps gear and construction equipment catalogs. Wyatt had cleared it out at 2 in the morning, working quietly, setting up the twin bed he'd bought from Mrs. Crawford's grandson 5 years ago and never used. Fresh sheets, blue blanket, window that opened, door that would never lock from the outside. She'd woken up once around 4, crying tangled in nightmare. Wyatt had sat beside her bed until she fell back asleep, hand on her small shoulder, grounding her, reminding her she wasn't in the quiet room, wasn't at Riverside, was somewhere safe. At 7:30, Bear called. We're rolling at 8:15, formation at the corner of Oakwood and Division. We ride in together. Wyatt could hear engines in the background, brothers warming up bikes, checking oil levels. The ritual preparation before something important. Understood. How's the girl? Scared, but ready. Good, we'll be there. Wyatt made breakfast, scrambled eggs, toast, orange juice, called Bryn gently from the bedroom. She appeared in the doorway wearing the same oversized Marine PT shirt, hair tangled from sleep, eyes wide and uncertain. Morning, kid. You hungry? She nodded, sat at the table, ate slowly this time, not the desperate gulping from yesterday. Learning that food would still be there, that she could take her time. We're going to court this morning, all of us. The brothers are coming. We're going to tell a judge what happened to you. Bryn's hand froze halfway to her mouth, fork trembling. Will Mr. Hastings be there? Probably. I don't want to see him. I know, but we need to show the judge you're telling the truth, and I'll be right there. Bear will be there. All 47 brothers. He can't hurt you anymore. What if she doesn't believe me? Wyatt knelt beside her chair. Then we keep fighting. But Bryn, listen to me. Judge Monroe is fair. She's been doing this for 22 years. She's seen everything. And she's going to see you, really see you, and she's going to know you're telling the truth. How do you know? Because I've spent my whole life reading people, knowing who to trust and who to watch. And I'm telling you, we've got a good judge. We've got evidence. We've got witnesses. We've got a recording in Hastings' own voice. This isn't like before when you tried to tell people and they didn't listen. This time they're going to listen. Bryn picked up the dog tags from where they rested against her chest. You promise, I promise. At 8:15, the rumble started again. This time, Bryn was ready for it. Stood at the window and watched 47 motorcycles arrive in formation, parking with military precision along Oakwood Drive. Bear at the front, Hugh beside him, the rest falling into place like they'd practiced it, which they had countless times over the years, for funerals and protests, and moments that required the club to show up as one unified presence. Mrs. Crawford came out of her house dressed in a navy blue pantsuit. Sunday church clothes worn on a Monday because this mattered. She walked over to Wyatt's porch. I'm coming too, if that's all right. Wyatt shook her hand. We'd be honored. More neighbors appeared, the Johnsons from across the street, the Pratts from 2 doors down. People who'd lived on this block for decades, who'd watched Wyatt come and go, who'd seen the commotion yesterday and wanted to understand. Word had spread, the way it does in working-class neighborhoods where people actually talk to each other. By 8:30, there were 20 civilians ready to follow 47 motorcycles to the courthouse. Bear approached the porch, looked at Bryn. You ready, little sister? She nodded. Wyatt had found her clothes that fit better. Small jeans from a donation run Dr. Gallagher had brought over last night. A purple t-shirt, sneakers that were close to the right size. Her hair was clean and braided. Hugh's wife had done it that morning. Gentle hands working through tangles while telling Bryn about her own daughter, grown now, safe now, but who'd needed help once too. Bear held out his hand. Bryn took it, small fingers disappearing in his massive palm. Let's go show them who you are. The ride to Multnomah County Courthouse took 17 minutes. 47 motorcycles moving through Portland's morning traffic formation, perfect pace steady. Cars pulled aside. People filmed from sidewalks. The sound was massive, unavoidable. A rolling thunder that announced something important was happening. Wyatt rode with Bryn in his truck. Couldn't put her on a bike, not with that ankle, not without proper gear. But she watched through the window as the motorcycles surrounded them, protective, purposeful. They're like knights. Bryn's voice was small but awed, like in the stories. Wyatt smiled. Yeah, kind of like that. The courthouse parking lot filled with chrome and leather. 47 bikes parking one by one in the overflow section. Engines cutting off almost in unison. The sudden silence after all that noise felt heavy, expectant. 200 pounds of leather and chrome per man, walking in disciplined rows toward the courthouse entrance. 20 civilians following behind. Mrs. Crawford in her navy pantsuit. Dr. Sterling in a dress shirt and tie. Officer Barrett in full uniform off-duty but present. Lisa Monroe from CPS risking her job by being here but coming anyway, because some things mattered more than employment. Security at the entrance tensed. Hands moved toward radios. 3 armed guards watching 47 bikers approach. Bear walk point, hands visible, open, non-threatening. Stop 10 feet from the metal detectors. We're here for a custody hearing. Courtroom 4B, Judge Monroe. 9 o'clock, the lead guard, a man named Patterson who'd worked courthouse security for 15 years, looked past Bear at the sea of patches and beards and tattoos. All of you, yes, sir, we're family. Patterson hesitated, checked his roster, looked at the line of people waiting to enter his courthouse, looked back at Bear. Morrison custody petition. Brennan versus State. That's right, a long look. Assessment, decision, metal detectors, single file, no exceptions. Understood. They filed through security, patient, respectful, removing wallets, keys, belts, pocket knives. No complaints, no attitude. Just 47 men who understood that showing respect to process was part of winning. By 8:40, courtroom 4B was standing room only. Bryn sat in the front row between Wyatt and Hugh. Michael Barrett, the attorney, sat on Bryn's other side briefcase, open documents organized in neat stacks. Behind them, 46 brothers filled every bench. Mrs. Crawford sat in the second row. Dr. Sterling and Officer Barrett beside her. Lisa Monroe in the third row alone, separated from her CPS colleagues who'd chosen not to come. The bailiff entered at 8:55, looked at the packed courtroom, at 47 bikers standing at attention, at one small girl in the front row, wearing dog tags and looking terrified. All rise. Everyone stood in unison. The sound of it, that synchronized movement, was like a physical force. Judge Elizabeth Monroe entered through the side door. She was 58 years old, 22 years on the bench, seen everything the family court system could throw at a person. Child abuse cases and custody battles and parents fighting over kids like they were property. She'd made hundreds of decisions, some good, some bad, some she still thought about late at night when sleep wouldn't come. 10 years ago, she denied an emergency custody petition, ruled that the evidence wasn't sufficient, sent a child back to a situation that looked fine on paper. 2 weeks later, that child died from injuries sustained in the home. Injuries that had been there all along, hidden, unreported, dismissed. Judge Monroe had carried that failure ever since, became more careful, more thorough, more willing to trust her instincts over paperwork. She looked at the packed courtroom now, at 47 bikers standing in disciplined silence, at the small girl in the front row who couldn't weigh more than 50 pounds. Her expression didn't change. Professional, neutral, but her jaw tightened slightly. Be seated. Everyone sat in unison. Judge Monroe reviewed her docket. Reading glasses perched on her nose, gray hair pulled back in a neat bun black robe, making her seem both formal and formidable. We're here on emergency petition for temporary custody, case number 24JV 08847. Petitioner Wyatt Brennan, seeking emergency custody of minor child Bryn Ashford, currently resident of Riverside Children's Home. She looked up at Michael Barrett. Mr. Barrett, you're representing Mr. Brennan. Yes, Your Honor. This is highly irregular. Emergency custody petitions typically take weeks to process. You filed this yesterday afternoon and requested immediate hearing. What's the emergency, Your Honor? May I approach with evidence? Proceed. Michael walked forward, handed up a manila folder. Judge Monroe opened it, started reading. The courtroom was silent. Just the rustle of papers, the tick of the clock on the wall. 47 men breathing in collective tension. 3 minutes, Judge Monroe read without expression. When she finished, she looked at Michael. Mr. Barrett, this folder contains a medical affidavit documenting severe malnutrition and evidence of physical abuse. It also contains a certified audio recording and 4 sworn witness statements from individuals who observed signs of neglect and reported same to authorities with no meaningful response. Yes, Your Honor. Where is the minor child now? In the courtroom. Your Honor. Front row. Judge Monroe looked at Bryn, really looked. Saw the small frame, the nervous hands clutching dog tags, the way she pressed against Wyatt's side seeking protection. Young lady, can you stand? Please, Bryn stood, shaking slightly. Wyatt put a hand on her shoulder, steadying. What's your name, Bryn Ashford? Judge Monroe's voice softened. Not much, but enough to notice. Bryn, my name is Judge Monroe. I'm here to make sure you're safe. Do you understand? A small nod. Are you safe right now with Mr. Brennan? Yes. Has Mr. Brennan hurt you or scared you in any way? Oh, he helped me. Okay, you can sit down, sweetheart. Bryn sat. Wyatt squeezed her shoulder gently. Judge Monroe looked at the courtroom. At the 47 men sitting in absolute silence. Mr. Brennan, would you approach the bench? Wyatt stood, walked forward, 6'2", 200 pounds, tattooed forearms visible below rolled sleeves, every inch the dangerous man he'd been trained to be, but moving carefully, respectfully, showing the judge he understood the gravity of this moment. Mr. Brennan, the courtroom is rather full today. Are all these individuals here for you? Yes, Your Honor. They're my brothers, Hell's Angels. Oregon chapter, a slight pause. Judge Monroe had been on the bench long enough to have preconceptions about motorcycle clubs, but she'd also been on the bench long enough to know that preconceptions could be wrong. And they're here because Bryn needs to know she has a family, that she's not alone anymore. Judge Monroe studied Wyatt's face, looking for deception, for manipulation, for the signs of someone trying to game the system. She didn't find them. Mr. Brennan, I've read the medical report. I've read the witness statements. I'm going to listen to this recording in chambers. But I need to ask you directly. What is your relationship to this child? Wyatt chose his words carefully. I found her in my garage yesterday morning, Your Honor. Barefoot, injured, terrified. She'd run from Riverside because she couldn't survive there anymore. She's 7 years old, same age my brother was when he died in a facility just like that one. His voice caught, steadied. I didn't say Finn. but I can save Bryn. And I will. You understand the responsibility you're taking on, yes, Your Honor. You're employed construction foreman, 12 years with the same company. I own my home. No debt. Clean record. Michael stepped forward. Your Honor, background check is in the packet. Mr. Brennan is honorably discharged Marine Corps veteran. No criminal history, stable employment. He's prepared to provide housing, education, medical care, and therapeutic support. Judge Monroe looked back at Bryn. The girl was watching Wyatt with complete trust, the kind of trust that couldn't be faked or manufactured. I'm going to adjourn for 30 minutes to review this evidence in chambers. Bailiff, please notify me when Director Hastings from Riverside Children's Home arrives. He was subpoenaed to appear at 9:30. She stood. Everyone rose. She walked out. The 30 minutes felt like 30 hours. Wyatt sat with Bryn, holding her hand, feeling her small fingers tremble in his palm. Bear stood behind them, solid presence. The brothers waited in silence, patient, disciplined. At 9:28, the side door opened. Trevor Hastings walked in. 51 years old. 5'10", thin, build, wearing khakis and a button-down shirt, wire-rimmed glasses, pleasant smile. He looked like every middle manager in America, like someone you'd trust to handle your taxes or manage your retirement fund. Harmless, professional, safe. He saw Bryn in the front row and his smile widened. Friendly, concerned. Bryn, there you are. We've been so worried. Bryn shrank into Wyatt's side. Wyatt felt her whole body go rigid with fear. Hastings approached, slow, gentle, the way you'd approach a frightened animal. Son, it's okay. You're safe now. We can go home. Wyatt stood, stepped between Hastings and Bryn, blocked his view of her completely. She's not going anywhere with you. Hastings' smile never wavered. Perfect. Practiced. And you are the man who found her barefoot and bleeding because she'd rather freeze in a stranger's garage than spend one more night under your care. Hastings turned to the bailiff. Reasonable? Rational? Officer, this man appears to be interfering with my legal custody of a minor in my care. The bailiff looked uncomfortable, started to respond. All rise. Judge Monroe had returned. Everyone stood. She sat. Everyone else sat. Her face was stone. Mr. Hastings, you're director of Riverside Children's Home. Hastings stood, respectful, deferential. Yes, Your Honor, for 8 years. Are you aware that Bryn Ashford ran away from your facility 2 days ago? I am, Your Honor. We've been searching frantically. I'm relieved she's been found safe. Mr. Hastings, I've just spent 28 minutes listening to a recording. Would you like to hear it? His pleasant expression didn't change. I'm not sure what you mean, Your Honor. She pressed play on her laptop. The courtroom speakers crackled to life. Hastings' voice. Clear, unmistakable. These kids eat too much anyway. I cut breakfast to 3 days a week. They're fine. Orphans should be grateful for anything. He doesn't talk anyway. Why waste the funding? I pocketed that for 6 months. Kids too damaged for therapy to help. These kids are revenue streams. The quiet ones like Bryn are perfect. They don't complain, don't cause trouble. State pays top dollar. It's beautiful. The color drained from Hastings' face. That pleasant smile finally cracking. Real emotion showing through. Fear. Judge Monroe stopped the playback. Mr. Hastings, is that your voice? Silence. Mr. Hastings, I asked you a question. Your Honor, I can explain. I'm sure you can, but not here, bailiff. Please contact Portland Police and request officers to this courtroom immediately. The bailiff moved to his radio. Hastings stood. Your Honor, this is a misunderstanding. Sit down, Mr. Hastings. He sat. Judge Monroe turned to the courtroom, to Wyatt, to Bryn, to the 47 men who'd shown up to bear witness. I'm granting emergency temporary custody to Mr. Brennan effective immediately. Bryn Ashford is not to return to Riverside Children's Home under any circumstances. Child Protective Services will conduct full investigation of the facility within 24 hours. All children currently in residence will be examined by medical professionals and interviewed separately from facility staff. She looked at Bryn. Young lady, you're going to stay with Mr. Brennan until we sort this out properly. Is that acceptable to you? Bryn nodded, started crying. Not from fear this time, from relief. You were very brave, Bryn. What you did recording that conversation, running away, asking for help, that took more courage than most adults will ever have. I'm proud of you. Portland police arrived 12 minutes later. Two officers' uniforms, crisp expressions, neutral but alert. They'd heard the situation from dispatch. Walked in expecting trouble with bikers. Instead found a courtroom full of silent men watching a middle-aged director being read his rights. Trevor William Hastings, you're under arrest for felony child endangerment, embezzlement of state funds, and fraud. You have the right to remain silent. Hastings started to protest, stopped when he saw the 47 faces watching him. Not angry, not violent, just watching, bearing witness, making sure he knew that people saw him now, that his crimes had witnesses. The officers cuffed him, led him toward the exit. As he passed Bryn's row, Hastings hissed quietly, just loud enough for the front rows to hear. You little Hugh Brennan stood up, didn't say a word, just stood. All 6'1", 190 of him. Gulf War veteran who'd seen real evil and knew how to confront it without flinching. Hastings shut his mouth, kept walking. After they left, Judge Monroe addressed Wyatt. Mr. Brennan, I'm scheduling a full custody hearing for 3 weeks from today. Between now and then, you'll need to complete home study background check, parenting classes, and psychiatric evaluation. Are you prepared to do that? Yes, Your Honor. Good, because this child has been through hell. She needs stability, structure, love. Can you provide that? Wyatt looked at Bryn. She was still holding the dog tags, still wearing the vest that hung to her knees. Yes, Your Honor, I can. Then I'll see you back here in 3 weeks. Court is adjourned. They walked out of the courthouse at 10:40. The local news had arrived. Cameras everywhere. Reporters shoving microphones forwarded questions overlapping into incomprehensible noise. Mr. Brennan, is it true 47 Hells Angels helped rescue a child from abuse? Bear stepped forward instead. Calm, clear. The voice of someone who'd done media before. We're not heroes. We're just people who saw a kid in trouble and decided to help. The real hero is Bryn. She saved herself. She was brave enough to run, brave enough to ask for help, brave enough to record evidence when no adult would listen. We just made sure the system finally paid attention. What happens to the other children at Riverside CPS is investigating as we speak. Every child will be examined. Every report will be reviewed. And if we find out other facilities are operating like this, we'll be watching those too. What message do you have for people watching? Bear looked directly at the camera. Portland morning light catching the gray in his beard, the scars on his knuckles, the patches on his vest that told stories of brotherhood and loyalty. Pay attention. Listen when a child hesitates. Ask the uncomfortable questions. Because Bryn tried to tell 4 different adults what was happening. 4 different people who had the power to help. And they all walked away. Don't be that person. Care enough to intervene even if your voice shakes. By noon, the story was everywhere. Local news, state news, national by evening. Headlines that weren't quite accurate but captured the essence. Biker gang saves abused child. Hells Angels take down corrupt facility director. 7-year-old's recording exposes embezzlement scheme. The coverage showed Bryn walking out of the courthouse holding Wyatt's hand, showed 47 bikers surrounding her like armor, showed Mrs. Crawford crying, showed the community that had rallied around one small girl and said, not here, not on our watch. By 3 p.m., Child Protective Services had arrived at Riverside with police escort. They found exactly what Bryn had described. 9 children in one dormitory, beds too close, room too cold, broken heater that hadn't worked in months, windows painted shut, fire code violation, bathroom door hanging crooked on broken hinges, kitchen pantry locked with combination lock. Only Hastings had known the code. Food supplies minimal, expired bread, rice, beans, nothing fresh, nothing resembling the balanced meals the state funding was supposed to provide. The quiet room, 5 by 5 feet, supply closet converted to punishment cell, no windows, no light, lock on the outside, scratches on the inside of the door where small hands had clawed trying to get out. Children interviewed separately, away from facility, in safe spaces with trained counselors. Stories matched, locked in at night, meals skipped, wooden spoon on the wall, quiet room for crying, average weight below 5th percentile for age. 3 children with untreated medical conditions. One boy, 8 years old, with infected tooth abscess, mouth swollen, pain obvious. No treatment provided because Hastings said dental work wasn't covered by basic funding. One girl, 6, with chronic ear infection, pulling at her ear, crying, told repeatedly to stop complaining. One boy, 9, with vision problems so severe he couldn't see the chalkboard at school. Except he hadn't been to school in 4 months because Hastings claimed homeschool was better. No actual homeschool curriculum provided, no teacher, just isolation. By 6 p.m., all 9 children were removed. Emergency foster placements, medical evaluations scheduled, trauma counselors assigned. By 9 p.m., the state had suspended Riverside's license pending investigation. But the investigation found something else. Declan Reed had kept digging. Hastings' computer, his files, financial records going back 5 years. He'd worked through the night after the hearing, coffee and energy drinks, keeping him sharp, following digital trails the way he'd been trained in Army intelligence. He found it at 2 a.m. state funding to Riverside, $3,400 per month per child for comprehensive care. 9 children, $30,600 per month, $367,200 per year. Hastings' actual spending on children approximately $300 per child per month, total $2,700 monthly, $32,400 yearly. The difference $29,400 monthly, $334,800 yearly, times 5 years. Total embezzled $1.6 million. But that wasn't all. Buried in archived emails from 2 years ago, Declan found another name, Melissa Hastings, Trevor's wife, deceased. Death certificate listed cause complications from pneumonia. She died 2 months after Trevor took out a life insurance policy on her. $200,000 payout. Declan cross-referenced medical records, public information from the hospital where Melissa died, admission notes, patient presented with sudden onset respiratory distress, no prior symptoms, rapid decline despite intervention. Attending physician note buried in the file, clinical presentation inconsistent with natural pneumonia progression. Recommended investigation, family declined autopsy. Trevor Hastings had declined the autopsy. 2 months later, he'd cashed the insurance check. 6 months after that, he'd bought the Ford F-150 Platinum Edition. The timeshare in Cabo, the boat. Declan showed the findings to Bear, to Wyatt, to Michael Barrett. We can't prove murder, not without autopsy, and it's been 2 years. Michael nodded slowly, but we can give it to the district attorney, let them decide if they want to investigate further, which they did. By Tuesday evening, additional charges were filed against Trevor Hastings: felony fraud, grand theft, 9 counts of child endangerment, 9 counts of felony neglect, embezzlement of state funds, and the DA requested exhumation order for Melissa Hastings' remains, wanted to test for poisons. Antifreeze showed up in toxicology even years later. Bone marrow preserved chemical signatures that soft tissue didn't. Bail was set at $500,000. A man who'd stolen over $1 million but had nothing to show for it except toys and debt couldn't make bail. Trevor Hastings would wait in county jail for trial. But while the legal system ground forward, something else was happening. Wednesday afternoon, Wyatt got a call from Michael. They want to interview Bryn, district attorney's office. They need her testimony on record. Wyatt looked at Bryn. She was on his couch, reading a book Hugh had brought. Children's novel about a girl who saved a kingdom. She was sounding out words, slowly rebuilding speech skills, relearning how to use her voice. She's been through enough, I know. But her testimony seals the case, and she deserves to be heard. On record. Officially. Wyatt sighed. I'll ask her. But if she says no, it's no. I'm not forcing her. Understood. I'll be there either way. Wyatt knelt beside the couch. Bryn, the prosecutor, wants to talk to you. Get your story on video. So when we go to trial, everyone knows what happened. Bryn looked up from her book. Will Mr. Hastings be there? No. Just you and me and Michael and the prosecutor. Safe room, no pressure. Do I have to know? But it would help. Help make sure he never hurts another kid. Bryn was quiet for a long moment. Then she closed the book carefully. Marked her place. I want people to know, so it doesn't happen to other kids. Wyatt felt pride swell in his chest. Okay, We'll do it together. Thursday morning, district attorney's office. Conference room with cameras set up, recording equipment, tested everything documented and official. Bryn sat between Wyatt and Michael. Across the table, assistant district attorney Laura Kim, 36 years old. Crimes Against Children Unit. 16 years prosecuting abuse cases. She'd seen everything, heard everything, thought nothing could surprise her anymore. But children still surprised her. Their resilience, their courage, the way they kept hoping even when every adult in their life had failed them. Bryn, I'm going to ask you some questions about your time at Riverside. If you need a break, just say so. Okay, okay. How long were you at Riverside? 6 months. And when you arrived, could you talk normally? Yeah. My mom said I was a good talker. What happened to your talking after you got to Riverside? Bryn's voice got smaller. Mr. Hastings said talking too much was bad. If we talked, we got in trouble. So I stopped talking. And then I forgot how. What kind of trouble did you get into for talking quiet room? Or the spoon? Can you tell me about the quiet room? It's a closet. Really dark. No windows. He locks you in. Sometimes for a long time. How long were you in there the longest? 28 hours? I counted. Laura's pen paused. 28 hours. 7-year-old locked in darkness for more than a day. Did you have food or water? Number bathroom. Bryn looked down, ashamed. No, Laura's voice was gentle. Bryn, that's not your fault. You understand that? A small nod. Can you tell me about the food at Riverside? We didn't get much. Breakfast was only 3 days a week. Lunch sometimes. Dinner was rice and beans, small bowls. If you asked for more, you got the spoon. The wooden spoon. Yes, Mr. Hastings kept it on the kitchen wall. He'd hit our legs or hands with it. Did he hit you? Yes. How many times? Lots of times. I don't remember all of them. Do you remember the last time? 2 weeks before I ran away? I asked for more food. He hit me 5 times on my legs, then locked me in the quiet room. Laura wrote carefully, each word documented, each detail preserved for trial. Bryn, why did you run away? The girl's voice broke. Because I heard him talking on the phone. He said I was damaged. He said he was sending me away. He said nobody would ever want me. And I thought if I stayed, I'd die there. Like Wyatt's brother. Who's Wyatt's brother? Bryn looked at Wyatt. Finn. He died in a place like Riverside. Wyatt couldn't save him. But Wyatt saved me. Laura had prosecuted abuse cases for 16 years. She'd seen horrors. She didn't cry in interviews. But her voice was thick when she said, you saved yourself, Bryn. You were brave enough to run, to record that conversation, to ask for help. That's the bravest thing I've ever seen. Will Mr. Hastings go to jail, ma'am, for a long time? Good. The interview lasted 45 minutes. When it was done, Laura stood, shook Bryn's small hand. You're going to testify at trial eventually. It won't be for a few months. But when you do, you're going to help us make sure he never hurts another child. Can you do that? Yes. Good girl. They walked out to Wyatt's truck. Bryn was exhausted. Emotional labor of reliving trauma. She climbed into the passenger seat, small in the big vehicle, and buckled herself in. As they drove home, she asked quietly, am I really going to stay with you forever if you want to? I want to. Wyatt's hands tightened on the steering wheel. 25 years of grief and guilt and loss crashing into this one moment. This second chance, then yeah, Bryn. Forever. Can I call you Dad? The question hit him like a physical blow. All the air leaving his lungs. All the carefully constructed walls he'd built around his heart crumbling. Yeah, kid. You can call me Dad. 3 weeks crawled by. Wyatt completed everything required. Home study where a social worker inspected every room, asked uncomfortable questions, documented that he could provide appropriate care. Background check that came back clean. Parenting classes at the community center where he was the only single man in a room full of couples. Psychiatric evaluation where a therapist probed his motivations and his capacity to parent a traumatized child. Everything came back the same. Suitable, stable, safe. Bryn was changing too, gaining weight. 4 pounds in 3 weeks. Still thin, but less skeletal. Speaking more clearly. Seeing a speech therapist twice a week who was amazed at her progress. Starting to use full sentences. Still stuttered when scared, but less often now. She slept in the blue bedroom with the door open and Wyatt's room across the hall. Had nightmares, sometimes woke up crying about the quiet room, but Wyatt was always there, sitting beside her bed, hand on her shoulder, grounding her, reminding her she was safe. She went to the clubhouse sometimes, met the brothers' families, played with their kids, started understanding that family could look different than what she'd imagined. Hugh's wife taught her to braid hair. Bear's daughter took her to the park. Dr. Gallagher showed her basic first aid, small pieces of normal life building a foundation. 3 weeks after the emergency hearing, they were back in Judge Monroe's courtroom. Only 12 brothers came this time. Didn't need the whole chapter for this. Just the core. Bear, Hugh, Michael, Dr. Gallagher. Declan, Mrs. Crawford, Officer Barrett, Dr. Sterling. The people who'd made this possible. Judge Monroe reviewed the reports in silence, then looked at Bryn. Young lady, do you want to stay with Mr. Brennan? Yeah, clear. No hesitation, no stutter. Has he treated you well? He's teaching me about motorcycles. And Dr. Gallagher is teaching me first aid. And Hugh tells me stories, and they're all nice to me. A pause. Nobody's ever been this nice to me. Judge Monroe's expression softened. Not much, but enough. Mr. Brennan, approach, please. Wyatt stood, walked forward. Mr. Brennan, I'm granting you full legal custody of Bryn Ashford. Adoption proceedings will be scheduled for 6 months from now, pending completion of standard waiting period and additional home visits. Congratulations. She banged the gavel. Wyatt turned. Bryn was already running, limping only slightly now. The ankle had healed. She crashed into him and he picked her up, 7 years old and 46 pounds. Still too light, but getting there. We did it, kid. Bryn buried her face in his shoulder. I got a dad. Yeah, you got a dad. The trial began 4 months later on a Tuesday in September. Summer had passed in a blur of adjustment and healing. Bryn living in the blue bedroom, learning what safety felt like. Wyatt learning how to be a father to a child who flinched at sudden movements and hoarded food in her dresser drawer because some part of her brain still believed she might go hungry. Learning together, growing together, building something that looked like family. By September, Bryn had gained 12 pounds. 54 now, still small for her age but healthier. Her hair had grown past her shoulders, blonde and thick, usually in braids that Hugh's wife taught her to do herself. The stutter was almost gone. Speech therapy twice a week for 4 months had rebuilt what Riverside had broken. She went to school now, 2nd grade at Bridgeport Elementary. Made friends slowly, cautiously, with other kids who didn't know about Riverside or courtrooms or the kind of nightmares that made you wake up screaming. Just kids who liked the same playground and games and shared their juice boxes at lunch. Wyatt drove her every morning, picked her up every afternoon, helped with homework at the kitchen table while dinner cooked. Simple routines, normal life, the kind Bryn had never known before. But the trial loomed, had been scheduled and rescheduled 3 times while Trevor Hastings' defense attorney Thomas Crane filed motion after motion, trying to suppress the recording, trying to exclude witness testimony, trying to delay until public attention faded and the system went back to not caring about orphans nobody wanted. It didn't work. District Attorney Laura Kim pushed back on every motion. Judge Harold Chen, presiding over the criminal case, denied most of them. The trial would happen. Justice would be served or denied, but it would happen. Tuesday, September 17th, Multnomah County Circuit Court. Judge Chen's courtroom was larger than Judge Monroe's family court. More formal, dark wood paneling, high ceilings, the seal of Oregon mounted behind the bench, flags on either side. The architecture of justice designed to intimidate. Jury selection had taken 3 days. 12 citizens, 7 women and 5 men, ages ranging from 24 to 68. Mix of backgrounds. Teacher, accountant, retired postal worker, barista, electrician, small business owner. People who'd agreed to sit in judgment of a man accused of destroying children for profit. Opening statements began at 9 a.m. Laura Kim stood. Mid-30s, Korean-American, sharp suit, sharper mind. 16 years in the Crimes Against Children unit. Never lost a case involving this level of evidence. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this case is about a man who saw vulnerable children and saw dollar signs. Trevor Hastings ran Riverside Children's Home for 8 years. During that time, he received over $3 million from the state of Oregon to provide comprehensive care for orphaned and foster children. food, shelter, education, medical care, therapy, everything a child needs to thrive. She walked along the jury box, made eye contact with each person. Instead, he gave them starvation. He gave them violence. He gave them isolation and fear. And he pocketed the difference. $1.6 million over 5 years. While children under his care lost weight, lost the ability to speak, lost hope. She gestured to where Bryn sat in the second row between Wyatt and Hugh. Small girl in a blue dress, hands folded in her lap, trying to be brave. Bryn Ashford is 7 years old. She weighed 42 pounds when she escaped Riverside by running barefoot through freezing April night. She should have weighed 50 pounds. She should have been attending school. She should have been receiving speech therapy that the state paid for monthly. Instead, she was locked in a closet for 28 hours because she asked for more food. Laura's voice hardened. You're going to hear from Bryn. You're going to hear from medical experts who documented her injuries. You're going to hear from neighbors who saw her crying at windows and called police. You're going to hear from the pediatrician who examined her and called Child Protective Services. You're going to hear from the CPS worker who conducted welfare checks and saw the signs. And most damning of all, you're going to hear Trevor Hastings, in his own words recorded, without his knowledge, calling children revenue streams, admitting to pocketing funds meant for their care, describing a 7-year-old as too damaged to help. She walked back to the prosecution table. By the end of this trial, you'll understand that Trevor Hastings didn't just neglect these children. He systematically abused and exploited them for financial gain. And when you understand that, you'll do what justice requires. You'll hold him accountable. Thomas Crane stood for the defense. Mid-50s, expensive suit, silver hair, the kind of lawyer who defended wealthy clients and made problems disappear through procedural technicalities and reasonable doubt. His strategy was obvious from the first sentence. Ladies and gentlemen, you're going to hear a lot of emotional testimony. Sad stories, difficult situations. But I ask you to remember something important. Trevor Hastings dedicated 8 years of his life to caring for the most vulnerable children in our community. Children with trauma, children with behavioral problems, children who needed structure and discipline. He walked the same path Laura had, making his own eye contact, building his own credibility. Was Riverside perfect enough? No facility is. The budget was tight. Resources were limited. Mr. Hastings made difficult decisions every day about how to allocate funding. Sometimes those decisions meant cutting breakfast to 3 days a week. Sometimes it meant prioritizing shelter over therapy. These weren't crimes. These were the impossible choices people make when trying to care for damaged children with insufficient resources. Wyatt felt his jaw clench. Damaged children, the same phrase Hastings had used on the recording. The prosecution will play you an audio recording of a private conversation taken without consent by a 7-year-old child who'd been coached by adults with an agenda. They'll present medical reports from doctors who examined one child on one day and made assumptions about systematic abuse based on a single data point. Crane gestured dismissively toward Bryn, but what they won't show you is context. The behavioral issues, the self-harm, the children who arrived at Riverside already traumatized and continued to struggle despite Mr. Hastings' best efforts. He returned to the defense table. My client is not a monster. He's a man who did his best in an impossible situation. And when you hear all the evidence, when you see the full picture, you'll find that the state has not proven beyond a reasonable doubt that Trevor Hastings committed any crime. The first witness was Dr. Nora Gallagher. She took the stand wearing professional attire. White coat left at the office, dark blouse and slacks, hair pulled back, every inch the medical professional. Laura walked her through credentials: nurse practitioner, 22 years experience, specialization in pediatrics, hundreds of examinations of abused children, then the examination report. Dr. Gallagher, you examined Bryn Ashford on April 29th of this year. Can you describe her condition? Nora opened the file she prepared 4 months ago. Bryn was severely malnourished. Weight 42 pounds when she should have been 48 to 52 for her age. Height 3 feet 9 inches small for age. Visible ribs, prominent hip bones, signs of chronic caloric deficit lasting months. What else did you observe? Multiple contusions in various stages of healing. Yellow-green bruise on left cheek, approximately 1 week old. Linear welts on posterior thighs consistent with being struck with rigid object. Pattern suggested wooden implement, approximately 1-inch diameter. Did Bryn tell you how she got these injuries? Yes. She stated that Director Hastings hit her with a wooden spoon kept on the kitchen wall. 5 strikes for asking for additional food at dinner. Objection. Hearsay. Judge Chen looked at Laura. Your Honor statement made for purpose of medical diagnosis. Exception applies. Overruled. Continue. Laura showed photographs to the jury. Bryn's legs 2 days after escape. Yellow-green welts clearly visible. Measurable. Documented. Dr. Bobton. Gallagher, in your professional opinion, were these injuries consistent with abuse? Yes. The pattern, location, and stages of healing indicated repeated strikes with rigid object over a period of weeks or months. What about her feet? Multiple lacerations, some deep enough to require removal of embedded gravel, consistent with running barefoot on pavement for extended distance. Several miles at minimum. Her ankle grade 2 sprain, significant swelling, painful, would have made running extremely difficult. So Bryn ran for miles on a badly sprained ankle and bleeding feet. Yes. Why would a child do that? Objection. Calls for speculation. Sustained. Laura shifted. Dr. Gallagher, did you observe any other concerning signs? Speech delay. Bryn spoke at approximately 3-year-old level despite being 7. Severe stutter under stress. Mother's medical records indicated normal speech development until 6 months prior. What causes that kind of regression trauma? Chronic stress. Sometimes children stop speaking when they're punished for talking. The brain adapts. Language centers atrophy from disuse. The jury was taking notes? Good. Laura wanted them writing down every detail. Cross-examination was brief. Crane couldn't dispute medical facts, could only try to provide alternative explanations. Dr. Gallagher, couldn't these injuries have resulted from normal childhood activities? Falls, playground accidents. The welts were linear, parallel, uniform spacing. That's not consistent with falls. Couldn't the speech delay be developmental? Some children are late talkers, not when there's documented normal development followed by sudden regression. That indicates environmental cause, but you can't say with certainty what caused it. I can say with professional certainty that trauma causes this pattern. Whether that trauma came from Riverside or elsewhere, I cannot definitively state. But the timing correlates exactly with Bryn's placement at the facility. Crane sat down. Damage control at best. The prosecution called witnesses through the morning, building a case brick by brick, each person adding their piece to the wall of evidence. Mrs. Helen Crawford took the stand wearing the same navy pantsuit from the custody hearing. Hands shaking slightly. Guilt still eating at her 4 months later. Mrs. Crawford, you live next door to Riverside Children's Home? Yes, for 12 years. Did you ever observe anything concerning? Her voice broke. I saw Bryn at the window, so many times, pressed against the glass. Crying, I could see her from my kitchen, just 30 feet away. What did you do? I called police. Twice. Told them a child appeared distressed. They came, looked around. Director Hastings showed them clean rooms, happy children, meal logs. They left. Did you do anything else? No. And I'll regret that for the rest of my life. I should have broken down that door. Should have called every day instead of twice. Should have made more noise. But I was scared of overstepping, scared of being wrong, scared of causing trouble. She looked directly at the jury. I was a coward, and Bryn suffered because people like me saw the signs and didn't do enough. Dr. Graham Sterling testified next, pediatrician who'd examined Bryn twice during her 6 months at Riverside. She got thinner each visit. First exam in November, she was 46 pounds, thin but acceptable. Second exam in February, 43 pounds, concerning weight loss. I documented both visits, called Child Protective Services both times. What did CPS say? That Riverside was a licensed facility, that Director Hastings had explained she was a picky eater. Grief-related appetite loss after her mother's death. They said they'd monitor the situation. Did the situation improve? No. By April, when she escaped, she was 42 pounds. She'd lost 9 pounds in 6 months. That's severe malnutrition in a growing child. Officer Tim Barrett testified in full dress uniform. Portland Police Department, 8 years on patrol. We responded to Mrs. Crawford's calls in January and March. Both times Director Hastings gave us full facility tour, showed us meal preparation areas, sleeping quarters, activity rooms. Everything appeared in order. Did you speak with the children briefly? In groups, they seemed quiet but not distressed. Did you ask to see Bryn specifically? No. Mrs. Crawford had mentioned a blonde girl at the window, but we didn't request individual interviews. In retrospect, we should have. Why didn't you? He looked uncomfortable. Hastings was cooperative, professional, showed us documentation. The facility looked clean. We had other calls waiting. We made a judgment call. Wrong call, as it turned out. Lisa Monroe from Child Protective Services was the hardest testimony. She sat in the witness box looking like she'd aged 10 years and 4 months. Still employed by CPS but facing internal review. Career on the line. Laura was gentle with her. Lisa had volunteered to testify despite knowing it would hurt her professionally. Ms. Monroe, you conducted welfare checks at Riverside in December and February, yes. Response to reports from Dr. Sterling about weight loss and potential neglect. What did you observe? Children appeared thin. Facility was cold. Broken heater that Hastings said was being repaired. Limited food in pantry, but everything met minimum standards technically. Did you see Bryn? Yes. She was small, quiet, didn't make eye contact. But Hastings explained she had selective mutism from grief. Provided documentation from a therapist. Did you verify that therapist existed? Lisa's voice was barely audible. No, I accepted the documentation. I was carrying 43 active cases. I made the assessment that Riverside met standards and moved to more urgent situations. Do you regret that decision? Every single day. The courtroom broke for lunch. Wyatt took Bryn to a quiet room the prosecution had arranged, away from cameras and reporters in the weight of testimony. She ate a sandwich slowly, turkey and cheese, fruit, juice box, normal kid lunch that still felt precious because of how many times she'd gone without. You doing okay? Bryn nodded, but her hands shook slightly, holding the sandwich. I have to testify tomorrow. Yeah, I'm scared, I know. But remember what we practiced. Tell the truth, look at the jury. If you need a break, just say so. What if Mr. Crane is mean? Wyatt knelt beside her chair. He's going to try to make you doubt yourself. Try to make the jury doubt you. That's his job. But you've got something he can't fight. The truth. And you're brave enough to tell it. The afternoon brought the evidence. Declan Reed testifies about the audio recording, chain of custody, metadata verification, certification that the recording was authentic and unaltered. Then Laura played it for the jury. The courtroom fell silent. Hastings' voice filled the space. Smooth, professional. Describing children as revenue streams, admitting to cutting meals, pocketing therapy funds, calling Bryn too damaged to help. Several jurors looked at Hastings with open disgust. Good. That was the reaction Laura needed. The financial expert testified next. Forensic accountant who'd spent 3 months analyzing Riverside's books. State funding to Riverside totaled $3,200,000 over 8 years. Actual expenditures on childcare totaled $1,600,000. The difference, $1.6 million, went to personal accounts controlled by Trevor Hastings. What did he spend it on? Vehicles, boat, timeshare property, personal travel, entertainment. None of it related to facility operations or child welfare. By 4 p.m., the prosecution rested. Strong case, overwhelming evidence. But Laura knew the hardest part was coming. Wednesday morning, Bryn's testimony. She wore the blue dress again, hair braided, dog tags hidden under the collar, but Wyatt knew she was wearing them. Had worn them every day since he'd given them to her. Talisman against fear. The courtroom was packed, every seat filled, media in the back rows, sketch artists because cameras weren't allowed. The weight of public attention focused on one small girl. Laura approached the witness stand after Bryn was sworn in, hand on a Bible that was bigger than her forearm, promised to tell the truth. Bryn, how old are you? 7. Almost 8. Where do you live? With my dad. Wyatt, how long have you lived with him? 5 months. Before that, where did you live? Riverside Children's Home. Laura kept her voice gentle, leading Bryn through the story step by step. How long she'd been there. 6 months. How she'd gotten there. After her mother died. What her days were like. Bryn's voice was small but steady. We woke up at 7. Breakfast was only Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Small bowls of oatmeal. Lunch was at noon. Sandwich and fruit. Dinner at 6, rice and beans mostly. Were you hungry? Yes, all the time. What happened if you asked for more food? Mr. Hastings got mad. He'd take the wooden spoon from the wall and hit our legs. Did he hit you? Yes, lots of times. Can you tell the jury about one time you remember 2 weeks before I ran away? I asked for more rice at dinner. He said I was ungrateful, took me to the kitchen, hit me 5 times on the back of my legs with the spoon, then locked me in the quiet room. What's the quiet room? A closet, really small, dark, no windows. He locks the door from outside. How long were you in there? I counted by singing ABCs. Sang it 112 times. That's 28 hours. Did you have food or water in there? No, bathroom. Bryn looked down, ashamed even now. No, that's not your fault, Bryn. You understand that, Enam. Why did you run away? Because I heard Mr. Hastings on the phone, talking about sending me away to a worse place. He said I was damaged, said nobody would want me, and I was scared. Where did you go? I ran. For a long time, my feet hurt, my ankle hurt, but I kept running until I found a house with a motorcycle. Because my mom said motorcycle people are good. They protect people. What happened when you found the motorcycle? I went into the garage. Fell asleep on it. When I woke up, Wyatt was there, and he helped me. Laura showed photographs. Bryn's legs with welts, her feet cut and bleeding. Medical documentation of malnutrition. The jury looked horrified. Good. Then it was Crane's turn. He stood slowly, adjusted his tie, approached the witness stand with a smile that was supposed to be reassuring but looked predatory. Hello, Bryn. I'm Mr. Crane. Bryn didn't respond, just watched him with wide eyes. Bryn, you said you heard Mr. Hastings on the phone. How did you hear that conversation? The air vent goes from my room to his office, and you recorded it without telling him. Yes. Do you know that's illegal? Recording someone without their permission. Bryn's hands started shaking. I didn't know. I just wanted someone to believe me. But you've made up stories before, haven't you? You told Mr. Brennan you had an imaginary friend, the motorcycle man, someone you made up. He was in my dreams, to help me feel better. So you imagined someone who would rescue you, someone who wasn't real. How do we know you didn't imagine the abuse? Bryn's eyes filled with tears. It wasn't imaginary. It happened. But you have trouble with reality sometimes, don't you? You talk to yourself. You have nightmares. You see things that aren't there. Objection, badgering, sustained, Mr. Crane rephrase. Crane softened his tone, became almost gentle, which was worse. Bryn, isn't it possible that you misunderstood what you heard, that Mr. Hastings was trying to help you and you misinterpreted it? No. He was mean. He hurt us. But you've been hurt before, haven't you? Your mother died. That must have been very painful. Maybe you're confused about who hurt you and when. I'm not confused. Crane walked to the defense table, picked up a file. According to these records, you were seeing a therapist before you went to Riverside. Dr. Patricia Mills. She diagnosed you with adjustment disorder and recommended ongoing therapy. Did that therapy continue at Riverside? Bryn shook her head. Why not? I don't know. Mr. Hastings says it's because you refused to participate. You wouldn't talk to the therapist. Is that true? I couldn't talk anymore. He punished us for talking. Or maybe you stopped talking because of grief, because of trauma from your mother's death, not because of anything Mr. Hastings did. Bryn was crying now, full tears running down her face, hands gripping the arms of the witness chair. He hurt me. He locked me up. I'm not lying. I'm not saying you're lying. I'm saying you might be confused. Traumatized children often mix up memories, combine different events, create narratives that feel true but aren't accurate. Objection. Witness is 7 years old and clearly distressed. Your Honor, I'm entitled to cross-examination. You've made your point, Mr. Crane. Move on. But Crane pressed. Bryn, when you ran away, you said you were looking for someone with a motorcycle. Someone like your imaginary friend. Doesn't that prove you were confused about reality? Bryn's voice came out as a sob. I just wanted help. I was scared. And Mr. Brennan found you, a stranger, and you immediately trusted him, immediately believed he would save you. Don't you think that's a little too convenient? Like a story you made up? Bryn couldn't answer, just cried. Wyatt was half out of his seat. Bear's hand on his shoulder held him back. Hugh leaned forward, whispering urgently, "Stay calm. Let the prosecutor handle it." Laura was on her feet. "Your Honor, this is beyond acceptable cross-examination. The witness is clearly in distress." Recess, 15 minutes. The gavel came down. Wyatt was at the witness stand before anyone could stop him. Lifted Bryn down. She clung to him, sobbing into his shoulder. "He's mean. He doesn't believe me. I believe you. The jury believes you. He's just trying to create doubt. That's all he's got. I can't do this." "Yes, you can, because you're the bravest person I know." They went to the quiet room. Wyatt sat on the floor with Bryn in his lap like she was 3 instead of 7. Let her cry until the tears ran dry. Hugh came in, knelt beside them. This man who'd known Finn, who'd carried his own share of guilt and grief. "Bryn, can I tell you something?" She nodded against Wyatt's shoulder. "When I came back from the war, I couldn't talk about what I saw. People asked questions and I just shut down. Couldn't find the words. And some people said I was confused, said I was making up stories, said trauma made me unreliable." He touched her shoulder gently. "But I knew what I saw. I knew what was real. And eventually enough people believed me that the truth came out. You know what you experienced. You know what's real. That lawyer can't change that. He can only try to make other people doubt you. But you don't have to doubt yourself." Bryn pulled back, looked at Hugh with red eyes. "What if they don't believe me anyway? Then we keep fighting. We don't give up just because one man asks mean questions." Laura appeared in the doorway. "Bryn, you don't have to go back. We have enough evidence without your testimony." Bryn was quiet for a long moment. Then she shook her head. "I want to finish. Other kids need to know it's okay to tell the truth even when it's hard." Wyatt felt pride swell in his chest. "You sure?" She nodded. They walked back into the courtroom. Every eye on them. Bryn climbed back into the witness chair, smaller than ever in that big seat, but her spine was straight. Judge Chen looked at her carefully. "Miss Ashford, are you ready to continue?" "Yes, sir, Mr. Crane, keep it brief." Crane stood. But something in Bryn's posture had changed. She wasn't crying anymore, was looking directly at him instead of down at her hands. "Bryn, I'll ask you one more time. Is it possible you're mistaken about what happened at Riverside Numb? How can you be so certain?" "Because I have scars." She pulled up her sleeve, showed the jury faded marks on her arm. "Cigarette burns from when I tried to take food from the locked pantry. Mr. Hastings said I needed to learn." Several jurors gasped. "That wasn't in any report. New evidence." "Because I counted. 28 hours in the quiet room. I counted every ABC song, 112 times. You don't count that if you're confused." "Because I have the recording. His voice, his words, calling me revenue stream." "You can't imagine that." She leaned forward slightly. "And because I ran barefoot for 6 miles in 40-degree weather, rather than spend one more night there." Nobody runs like that if they're confused about being safe. Crane opened his mouth, closed it, sat down. No further questions. Laura stood for redirect. "Bryn, why didn't you tell anyone about the cigarette burns before?" "Because I was ashamed. I thought it was my fault for trying to get food. It wasn't your fault. You understand that now, yeah. My dad told me it's never okay for adults to hurt kids, no matter what." "One final question. Are you glad you told the truth today? Even though it was hard?" "Yes, because if I don't tell Mr. Hastings might hurt more kids, and I don't want anyone else to be scared like I was." "Thank you, Bryn. No further questions." The trial continued through Thursday. The defense presented their case. Character witnesses for Hastings, people who'd known him for years. Former employees who said he was demanding but fair. Financial consultants who argued the accounting was sloppy but not criminal. None of it mattered. The recording was damning. The medical evidence was clear. Bryn's testimony was devastating. Friday morning brought closing arguments. Crane tried. Painted Hastings as overwhelmed administrator, making difficult choices. Suggested Bryn's testimony was unreliable due to trauma. Argued reasonable doubt existed about criminal intent. Laura destroyed him. She replayed the recording one final time. Let the jury hear Hastings laugh about pocketing therapy funds, calling children revenue streams, describing Bryn as too damaged to help. This is not a man overwhelmed by circumstances. This is a man who saw vulnerable children and saw profit, who systematically starved, abused, and exploited them for 8 years, who caused immeasurable harm to dozens of children for $1.6 million. She walked along the jury box one final time. Bryn Ashford ran 6 miles on bleeding feet and a sprained ankle. 7 years old, 42 pounds, running through freezing night because staying was worse than anything she might face out there. Let that sink in. A child chose unknown danger over the care this man was paid to provide. She pointed at Hastings. He called her damaged. But she's not damaged. She's a survivor. She's brave and strong, and she saved herself. And now you have the power to make sure he never damages another child. Do what justice requires. Hold him accountable. The jury deliberated for 1 hour and 47 minutes. Guilty on all 18 counts. Felony child endangerment, 9 counts. Guilty. Felony neglect, 9 counts. Guilty. Embezzlement of state funds, guilty. Grand theft, guilty. Fraud, guilty. Hastings sat frozen as each verdict was read, face pale, hands shaking, the pleasant smile finally gone. Nothing left but fear. Sentencing came 3 weeks later. Same courtroom, same judge. But this time there was an additional charge. Melissa Hastings' body had been exhumed in August. Forensic analysis of bone marrow revealed traces of ethylene glycol, antifreeze, administered in small doses over several months, enough to cause symptoms mimicking pneumonia, enough to kill without obvious evidence. The medical examiner's report concluded homicide by poisoning. Additional charge filed first-degree murder. Judge Chen looked at Trevor Hastings standing before the bench. This man who'd hidden behind professional demeanor and pleasant smiles while destroying lives. Hastings, you have been convicted by a jury of your peers on 18 counts of child abuse, neglect, and financial fraud. Additionally, you face murder charges for the death of your wife, Melissa Hastings. For the child abuse and fraud convictions, I sentence you to 15 years in state prison with no possibility of parole for 10 years. You will pay full restitution to the state of Oregon in the amount of $1.6 million. You are permanently banned from working with children in any capacity. The murder trial will proceed separately, but Mr. Hastings, understand this. You will never leave prison. Whether you die there after 15 years or after life sentence for murder, you will spend your remaining days knowing that your crimes have been seen, that the children you harmed have been heard, that justice delayed but not denied has found you. Hastings was led away in handcuffs, didn't look at the courtroom, didn't look at Bryn, just kept his eyes forward as officers escorted him out. Bryn didn't cheer, didn't celebrate. She just cried quietly in Wyatt's arms. "What's wrong, kid?" "We won." Her voice was muffled against his shoulder. "I'm sad for Mrs. Hastings. She tried to save us, and he killed her." Wyatt held her tighter. "Yeah, that's worth crying about." 6 months later, on a Tuesday in March, they returned to Judge Monroe's courtroom for the final time. Adoption day. Bryn was 8 now, almost 58 pounds, healthy weight, growing, thriving. She'd been in therapy every week since the trial, working through trauma, learning coping skills. Still had nightmares sometimes, but less frequently. School was going well. 3rd grade now skipped ahead because she was catching up fast on everything Riverside had stolen from her. Had a best friend named Emma who knew nothing about courtrooms and trials, just knew Bryn was good at kickball and shared her crayons. The clubhouse had become second home. Bear's daughter, Michaela, was like a big sister. Hugh and his wife were grandparents in everything but name. The brothers were uncles. Dr. Gallagher was aunt, a whole extended family built from choice instead of blood. All 47 brothers came to the adoption hearing, plus wives, girlfriends, children. Mrs. Crawford, Dr. Sterling, Officer Barrett, Lisa Monroe, who'd left CPS to work for a nonprofit advocacy group fighting for children's rights. People who'd been part of Bryn's story. Judge Monroe smiled when she saw the packed courtroom. "Mr. Brennan, you certainly know how to fill a room." Wyatt stood with Bryn beside him. She wore a white dress Hugh's wife had made, hair in perfect braids, dog tags visible around her neck because this was a day to remember promises kept. "Your Honor, when family shows up, you make room." Judge Monroe reviewed the final adoption paperwork. 6 months of home visits, all positive. continued therapy for Bryn, ongoing support system. Everything in order. She looked at Bryn. Miss Ashford, do you understand what adoption means? Yes. It means Wyatt becomes my forever dad. Legal and everything. That's right. Do you want Wyatt to be your forever dad? Bryn reached into her dress pocket, pulled out the dog tags, the ones Wyatt had given her that first morning in his garage. 11 months ago, a lifetime ago. She held them out to Wyatt. You told me to hold these until you brought me home safe. You brought me home, like you promised. Wyatt took the tags, hands shaking, put them back around his own neck, where they'd lived for 18 years before Bryn. Yeah, kid, we're both home now. Judge Monroe's voice was thick with emotion. By the power vested in me by the state of Oregon, I hereby grant final adoption decree. Bryn Ashford is now legally Bryn Brennan. Congratulations to you both. The gavel came down. The courtroom erupted. 47 bikers on their feet applauding, some crying openly. Hugh was sobbing, bear clapping so hard it echoed. Mrs. Crawford dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief. Bryn hugged Wyatt hard. I got a forever family. Yeah, you do. But the story didn't end there. Stories like this don't end. They ripple outward. 2 weeks after the adoption, Bryn came to Wyatt with an idea. Dad, we should help other kids, like the brothers helped me. What do you mean, like a phone number? Kids who are scared can call, and we'll help them. Wyatt looked at his daughter, 8 years old and thinking about other people's pain, wanting to turn her trauma into purpose. That's a good idea. Let's talk to Bear. They met at the clubhouse that Saturday. Bryn presented her plan to the full chapter. Standing on a chair so everyone could see her. No stutter, no fear, just determination. Kids are scared to tell adults about abuse because adults don't always believe them. But maybe they'd call a number if they knew someone would listen. Someone who wouldn't just say they'll look into it and then forget. Bear listened carefully. What would we call it? Bryn thought for a moment. Angels Watch. Because you're angels on motorcycles, and you watch out for people. The vote was unanimous. Angels Watch launched 1 month later. Simple system. Phone number distributed to schools, shelters, hospitals. Staffed 24/7 by rotating brothers and volunteers. Trained crisis counselors on call. Direct lines to police, CPS attorneys who'd fight. First call came 3 weeks after launch. Bryn was at the clubhouse doing homework when the phone rang. She looked at Bear. He nodded. She picked up. Angels Watch. This is Bryn. Small voice on the other end. Girl. Maybe 9 or 10. Scared. Is this the place that helps kids? Yes. What's your name? The girl hesitated. Sloan. Hi, Sloan. I'm Bryn. I was where you are once. Tell me what's happening. 20 minutes later, Bear and 3 brothers were rolling to an address in Northeast Portland. Sloan McKenzie, 10 years old, foster placement gone wrong. Foster father drinking, getting violent. Sloan had seen the Angels Watch number on a flyer at school. She called. They came. Within 2 hours, Sloan was in emergency placement. CPS notified. Foster father under investigation. Within 3 months, Angels Watch had helped 14 children. Runaways, abuse victims, kids in situations where adults had failed them. Word spread. Foster kids telling other foster kids. School counselors keeping cards in their desk. Nurses at emergency rooms slipping phone numbers to children with suspicious injuries. The program expanded. Seattle chapters started their own version. Then Sacramento, Phoenix, Denver. Anywhere Hell's Angels had a presence, Angels Watch followed. Within a year, 37 cities across 11 states had active programs. Hundreds of kids helped. Dozens of abusers arrested. Systems forced to pay attention because motorcycle clubs made noise that couldn't be ignored. 1 year after Wyatt found Bryn in his garage, they rode together to a place neither had been in months. Pine Valley Children's Home. Abandoned now. Building condemned. Windows broken. Grass overgrown. The place where Finn had died 26 years ago. They parked at the fence. Wyatt helped Bryn off the bike. She'd been practicing riding on the back, getting comfortable with the noise and speed. Getting ready for the day, she'd be old enough to ride her own. They walked to the gate. Someone had placed flowers there over the years. Memorial to children who'd suffered, who'd died, who'd been forgotten by everyone except the people who loved them. Bryn held Wyatt's hand. Tell me about Finn. So Wyatt told her, all of it. Not the sanitized version, but the truth. How Finn had been 7 when their parents died. How Wyatt had been 18 too young for custody. How Finn had gone to Pine Valley because that's what the system did with orphans. How Wyatt had visited every week, seen his brother getting thinner, quieter, more afraid. How Wyatt had tried to get custody, been denied. How he'd tried to report abuse, been dismissed. How Finn had died from injuries sustained during punishment, locked in a closet for crying. Just like Bryn. Just like too many others. I couldn't save him. I was too young, too powerless. And I've carried that for 26 years. Bryn was quiet for a long time. Then she said something that broke him open in the best way. Finn's not sad anymore, Dad. He sent me to you, so you could save me, and so I could save you. Wyatt knelt beside his daughter, this brave, broken, healing girl who'd become his second chance. Yeah, kid, I think you're right. They stood there for a while. Then Bryn picked wildflowers from the overgrown grass, tied them with ribbon from her hair, placed them at the gate. Thank you for sending me your brother Finn. He's a good dad. The sun was setting when they rode home. Wyatt's Harley rumbling through Portland streets. Bryn pressed against his back, arms wrapped around his waist, dog tags clinking against his chest. Home was a blue bedroom with an open door, a kitchen table covered with homework, a living room full of brothers who showed up for movie nights, a garage with motorcycles and tools, and memories of a morning when everything changed. Home was a daughter who'd chosen him as much as he'd chosen her, who'd run through the cold, seeking safety, and found family instead. That night, Bryn came to Wyatt's room before bed. Something she did sometimes when the nightmares felt close. Dad, can I ask you something? Always. Do you still dream about Finn? Sometimes, but they're different now, less sad. He's happy in them. And he's with you. She climbed onto the bed beside him. Small in her pajamas, 8 years old and still learning that bedtime didn't mean being locked away. Tell me a story about when you were brave. So Wyatt told her about Iraq, about the times he'd been scared but did the right thing anyway, about the Marines who'd become brothers, about coming home and finding new brothers, about the day he opened his garage and found the bravest person he'd ever met sleeping on his motorcycle. I wasn't brave. I was just scared. Bravery is being scared and doing it anyway. You ran. You asked for help. You testified even when that lawyer was mean. You started Angel's Watch so other kids wouldn't be alone. That's brave. Bryn was quiet, thinking. Are you glad I found you? Wyatt pulled her close. Every single day. She fell asleep there. Wyatt carried her back to the blue bedroom, tucked her in, made sure the nightlight was on and the door was open. He stood in the doorway watching her breathe. This child who'd saved his life by letting him save hers. This second chance he'd never expected and didn't deserve, but would spend every day trying to earn. His phone buzzed. Text from Bear. Another call just came in. Boy, 7 years old, Seattle. Needs help. Wyatt looked at Bryn sleeping peacefully. Thought about Finn. Thought about all the children still waiting for someone to listen. He texted back, I'll make some calls. Let's get him safe. Because that's what they did now. What they'd always do. Show up for kids nobody else wanted. Listen when others dismissed. Fight when the system failed. It wouldn't bring Finn back. Wouldn't erase 26 years of guilt. But it meant Finn's death had purpose. Meant Bryn's suffering had sparked something bigger than one rescue. Meant broken people could heal by helping others heal. Wyatt walked to his own bedroom. Lay down. For the first time in 26 years, he fell asleep without dreaming of failure. Instead, he dreamed of Bryn learning to ride her own motorcycle someday, of Angel's Watch growing to every state, of a world where children they could call for help and someone would come, Situ. He dreamed of Finn standing beside Bryn, both of them smiling, both of them safe. And when he woke the next morning to sounds of his daughter making breakfast, attempting pancakes with more enthusiasm than skill, he thought this is what redemption looks like. Not erasing the past, not forgetting the ones you failed, but honoring them by making sure their story changes how you show up for everyone who comes after. Finn had sent him Bryn, not to replace him, not to erase guilt, but to prove that second chances exist. That healing is possible. That broken people who choose to love anyway can build something beautiful from their scars. Wyatt got up, walked to the kitchen, helped his daughter with the pancakes. They were lumpy and slightly burned, but they ate them anyway, laughing together. And somewhere, maybe Finn was smiling, because his brother had finally learned what Finn had always known, that love means showing up, that family is built by choice, that the motorcycle man from a scared child's dream can become real if someone is brave enough to answer the call. They'd saved each other, the Marine with too much guilt and the girl with too much courage. Built a family from ashes and second chances. Started a movement that would ripple across the country. And every time the Angels watch phone rang, every time a scared child found safety, every time the system was forced to listen, because people refused to look away, it was another small victory. Not just for Bryn, not just for Wyatt, but for Finn and Melissa and every child who'd suffered in silence. For every person who'd failed them and carried that weight. This was how you honored the dead, not by forgetting, but by making sure their stories mattered, by fighting so the next generation didn't have to suffer the same way. Wyatt looked at his daughter across the table, sticky with syrup, grinning despite the kitchen disaster. Best pancakes ever, kid. You're lying. But thanks, Dad. He smiled and meant it. For the first time in 26 years, the weight on his chest felt lighter. Not gone, never gone, but bearable. Because he finally understood what Bryn had told him at Finn's memorial. Finn hadn't sent her to be saved. He'd sent her so they could save each other. And they had.